Hi everyone, hope you're well. Just want to record a quick message. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was by a American Japanese. She was talking about how to make use of adrenaline to perform. Anyway, so one of the things that when she was talking about during the podcast was she was talking about how Asian culture don't really say much "I love you" explicitly to the parents. You know, she was going through this story of she committed to sort of use the adrenaline to help her excel, and she was planning how to speak to the mother and the father, because I think she lives in New York, but the father lives in California. So and they have this weekly call that she will run through her week with her mom, and then after that the mom will pass the phone to the dad, right? So she was planning all this whole thing of how to actually try to say "I love you" to the mom and dad. So the same thing. So it's on a Friday. She rang the mom. She start telling her the days, and then when you finish, just before she finished, she was before passing on to the dad, she was then sort of throw a question at mom. She was actually asking her mom whether she can have the permission to say "I love you," that is how Japanese culture and how sort of respectful the culture is. So she actually asked her mom whether she can have the permission to say "I love you" to her, like at the end of the conversation or before hang up. The mom actually paused for a while, and for her, she felt like that pause was pretty much like eternity at that moment. And after a long pause, the mom actually said, "Yeah, that would be a good idea." And that was, for her, it was like a big relief off her chest, So anyway, so now she has sort of get through that hurdle. She then have the permission to say "I love you" at the end of the conversation. Then the mom actually passed the call then to the father. And the second time around, she did the same thing with the father, because the first time she did that to the mom already. So the second time around, she won't feel as hard when she asked the dad for the permission. Anyway, so yeah. So what she did was then she asked the dad the same thing, and the dad was also okay to say "I love you." Yeah. So, but there is another part of the story that is the dad actually at that time, which is probably about a year and a half ago, was already diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, which means, they was start to forgetting things. So that was after a few weeks when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And I guess the touching part of the story is the dad actually, from that day onwards, every time when they speak on the phone, the dad actually remember this conversation, and before the conversation finishes, he actually said "I love you" to her first. Like even in the next phone call, he said it first. So from that podcast, I learned that the dad actually has already passed, and she actually shared that even on the week before her dad passes, he still say "I love you" before the end of the phone call. So from that story, it brought a bit of tear to my eyes back then. So, and now I'm trying not to show that much emotion on the camera. But the long and short of this story is that makes me think, during this rather difficult time, have we said enough "I love you" to the people that we love? So because of that, I actually put myself into a challenge to do that to my own parents. Now, I have been talking to my parents. I try to call them every evening during the meal time, but at least I will call them 3 or 4 times a week. And so we just during having a meal, together, so over the camera, and then I usually just, talk about our days and share our different childhood stories and stuff like that. But anyway, the best part is we keep in touch despite we're separated by pandemic and different countries. I just want to keep in touch with them, and they are in lockdown for more than a year now. So Dad has his garden patch is his very proud achievement now, because of all the times that he has on his hand, making all the garden bed looks so perfect. So we had a lot of that conversation now. Anyway, so it comes down to me now to set myself to achieve that challenge. But last week I actually start the conversation. So halfway through the conversation, I was like, I got a brother and a sister, and I was like, when is my brother and sister going to join this conversation? Because I don't want to do this by myself. So I actually hoping that they can join in, so that I don't be so embarrassed. So halfway through the conversation, my brother joined. So I said, oh yes, very good, my brother joined. So for halfway through the conversation, I then brought up this topic. I said, oh look, I have been listening to this podcast, and this author actually set herself a challenge to say I love you to the Japanese parents. And I asked my brother, I use that as an excuse, and asked my brother and my mom and say, why do you think we don't say I love you, and then is it all right, or can we express that? And my brother basically said, very typical Asian reply, said, look, we don't say I love you, we just express our love through actions. So I said, but saying I love you is just even when you say it, I really mean it if I want to say it. So why can't I say it? Then and I gave the example of our kids. Our kids come and hug us. Our kids come and say I love you when they're younger. So we shouldn't sort of stop from doing that, because you feel such a sweet and nice feeling, isn't it? Anyway, so I thought of something that make it less embarrassing and sort of make it a bit of a joke and fun with it. So I go, why don't we just do this? I think this hand motion comes from Korean culture, where it actually means love and I love you. So I actually said, why don't we just try, at the end of the conversation, we just go, I love you. So toward the end of the conversation, my dad was actually in the garden patch, so he didn't catch this part of the conversation, but mom did. And then, so it was 2 hours of a conversation that night, I remember. And at the end of the conversation, I actually said, love you. And she actually said, love you back. And even my brother, so it was quite a light conversation. And I got past that fear. So I managed to conquer that as well, just like how that author is doing. And then there come the second night, which is 2 nights later. So we had the same conversation. And I remembered, so at the end of the conversation, again, it was my mom, and my dad was finished the conversation. He always just left after the conversation, and only me and my mom just keep talking. I think that night only me and my mom. Oh, my brother is there as well, so he was running, he was joking. So and then at the end of the conversation, I then say love you. So it was become more natural now, even her. So it was a bit of an embarrassment at the end of that, but now it's sort of become more natural. So that was twice last week, at the beginning and middle of the week as well. And last night we had probably about an hour and a half conversation. Again, my brother was jogging. I finished my dinner and we're talking about what to eat, and my dad was showing his garden patches, all the fruits and all the veggies that he's harvesting. So he's quite proud of that. Anyway, so my dad and my mom were both there last night towards the end of the conversation. And when I said, I got to go and take my shower now, I'll see you soon, mom and dad both do love you to me. They both say that to me first. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to achieve with them, to have no barriers of saying love you. I mean, as lovable this matter it may sound, and trying to get like Asian parents to break down this culture and adopt, I am really proud of my parents and I love them to bits. So yeah, right now we're in lockdown. I really want to be able to go home and you know, cuddle them and be with them, but the pandemic situation really threw us around. Mom and dad last night was even talking about, oh, when I fully retired, when will I be able to travel like I used to? So anyway, dad actually said that, and I think he meant it. Anyway, I'm so glad that over the last 3 to 5 years, when they were visiting here overseas in Australia, I actually did manage to brought them to different places, right? And one of the things that I keep telling myself is that when my dad and when our parents are still able and, you know, fit and able to walk and bring them to more places, be with them, you know, spend more time with them. So I told myself that maybe about 10 years ago, and that's why from ever since that day, that time forward, every time when we had a holiday together or travel together, I will bring them to another place that they haven't been. Like, I think 4 years ago I bring them to New Zealand, or 3 years ago I bring them to New Zealand. Last year I bring them to Tasmania, and yeah, so it's always been very memorable. And yeah, you know, this is the thing that you want to do with your family. It creates the memory. And yeah, I think I better stop here now. I've been ragging on for too long. I hope yeah, I hope this sharing you know, touches you one way or the other. Yeah, love you. Bye guys, talk to you next time.